When she stops fighting with you, that's when most men finally exhale. They think, okay, the storm passed. Maybe we're getting somewhere, but I need you to hear something before anything else today. The silence isn't peace. The quiet isn't healing. When a woman stops arguing, stops crying, stops bringing up the same wounds, she's not getting better. She's deciding. And if she reached that point where she doesn't care if you stay or go, that is a woman who is done being hurt. And there's a very specific reason she got there, a very specific way through it. My name is Noah Allen. I work with hundreds of men who are facing exactly this moment. The moment where effort gets no response, when apologies land flat, and when she looks at you and you realize she doesn't feel anything. Today, we're going to cover 3 things. What not caring actually means, because most men have it completely wrong. Why everything that you're instinctively doing is making it worse, and what actually creates the shift when she's got this far. Stay with me because this one matters. Here's what most men get wrong right away. They hear, I don't care anymore. And they think, oh, she's gone. They think the connection died and they think it's over. But apathy is almost never what it looks like from the outside. When your wife says she doesn't care anymore, she's not telling you the connection is dead. She's telling you the connection became too dangerous. Think about what it took for her to get there. She didn't start this marriage feeling nothing. She didn't start feeling everything. She cared so much, it physically hurt her, cried for the relationship, fought for the relationship, brought up the same wounds 10, 15, maybe even 20 times, hoping this would be different. And what her nervous system learned over months and years of that is caring about this, hoping for more leads to disappointment. Wanting something from this man ends in pain. So she shuts it down. Not because she wanted to leave you, but because wanting you became too expensive. That is what I call a bleeding point. In the heroic husband method, we go over this in detail. Not just a surface level wound. It's not the argument from last Tuesday or the fact that she still feels unheard and unseen. The deeper wound underneath all that, that's the bleeding point. The one that's been collecting interest for years. And not caring is what a bleeding point looks like when it goes untreated long enough. She's not cold by nature. She's defended by necessity. Now, here's the concept, okay? You need to understand this very deeply because it changes the way that you see everything. One of the core principles I teach is the feminine mirrors and multipliers. Your wife doesn't invent the emotional climate of your home. She reflects it, and then she amplifies it. If you carried anxiety for years, she mirrors unsettlement. If you've been emotionally absent, she mirrors distance. If you've been unavailable, distracted, or leading from panic instead of presence, she becomes a mirror of that too. Because that's how the feminine works. She didn't check out out of isolation. She learned from the environment you created that it was safer to be numb, then to keep being disappointed. Think about a circuit breaker. When too much current runs through a line, the breaker doesn't explode. It trips. It shuts the circuit down. Not to end the power forever, but to protect the system from burning out. That's what she did. She tripped her own emotional circuit. And most men respond to that by throwing more power at the problem, more conversations, more gestures, more urgency, more declarations. And the breaker keeps tripping. Because the problem isn't more power. The problem is the circuit hasn't been reset yet. And here's the critical piece, the part that changes everything. The circuit does not reset from the outside. It resets from a new environment, a stable environment. Not words, not effort, environment. She'll hear what you say, she'll register what you do, but her nervous system is evaluating something entirely different. It's asking one question on a loop. Is it finally safe? Is it stable now? Or is it another wave before the next storm? And if you haven't changed the environment at a level deeper than behavior, her nervous system will keep answering, not yet. That's not rejection. That's the nervous system doing its job. And it means something specific about what you need to do next. Here's another way to understand this. I talk to men all the time who said, things seem to be fine. I thought we were okay. And their wife was dying inside for years. Not because they were bad men. It was because of this truth. Your vision of the marriage and her vision of the marriage are often not the same marriage. What feels like fine to you has been unbearable for her. And by the time that you notice that she's gone cold, she's been gone for longer than you realized. If you're in this right now, if she's told you that she feels nothing or that she doesn't care if you leave, I want you to take action on this today. Not after this video, today. My team works specifically with men in this situation. We do a free consultation call. It's not a pitch. It's not a sales conversation. It's a real conversation about your specific situation. Where are the actual bleeding points? What stage you're actually in? And what does your path forward really look like? The link is in the description below. While you're down there, you can also click the link and grab the Heroic Husband Method book. It's everything I know about this situation laid out in a format that you can read this week. Also in the description. Now let's keep going. Here's where most men go wrong. And I want you to be, look, I want to be very direct about this because it's the pattern that I see constantly. And men who come to me after months of getting nowhere. When a high performer realizes his wife has gone cold, I mean really cold, not just a rough week, his first instinct is to mobilize. He's a problem solver. He's decisive. He knows how to apply effort and get results. So he makes a list: vacation, date nights, couples therapy. He starts doing the dishes without being asked. He writes a letter. He apologizes. He shows up more. He talks more. He does more. And I understand the logic. This is exactly what you do in business. A client pulling away, you increase contact. You demonstrate value. You show up harder. But your wife is not tracking value the way that a client does. She's tracking energy. She has been calibrated to your energy for years. And when you show up doing more with the motivation underneath all of it is fear, she feels it. Not because she's looking for it, but because she's wired to feel it. This is the concept of conscious and subconscious seeds. Conscious seeds are what you say, the letter, the apology, the grand gesture. Subconscious seeds are who you're being when you say it. And if you're being a man who's terrified of losing her, if you're doing all of this because you need her to respond so that you can feel okay, the subconscious seed that you're planting is, I'm not stable. I need your reaction to function. And a woman is in self-protection mode, reads that immediately. She doesn't feel led by it. She doesn't feel chosen by it. She feels responsible for managing your panic. She's already exhausted. I worked with a man, we'll call him Marcus, executive. He was a high earner. He built a successful company in one of the most competitive industries out there. Smart, driven, respected by everyone around him. His wife sat across from him one night and said, I'm not hungry. I'm not sad. I just don't feel anything anymore. He told me later that was the scariest thing that he had ever heard anyone say to him in months, or actually years. He's even lost like pretty high figure accounts that he was going over, and he was telling me, and I was like, oh, that would make me sweat. That would make me sweat. But his wife made him sweat because her anger means that there's still something there. Anger means the connection is alive enough to hurt. That was something else entirely. So Marcus did what every high performer does. He built a plan, researched a couple therapists, booked a trip for just two of them, wrote her a 3-page letter, started coming home early, helping her more with the kids, asking what she needed, checking in more, and none of it moved her. Something strange happened, actually. She got quieter. Not cold exactly, just further. Like every gesture he made reminded her of something that she had already decided. And that something wasn't hope. When Marcus first came to me, he said, I just don't understand. I'm doing everything right. I'm giving her everything that she said she wanted. Why isn't it working? And here's what I told him. She's not responding to your behavior. She's responding to the energy underneath your behavior. And right now, that energy says, I'm still the man. I'm just performing a better version of him. And every time she felt that, the performance, the reaching, the need, it confirmed what her nervous system had already decided, that nothing has fundamentally changed, that this is a cycle, that if she lets herself care again, she'll just end up hurt again. And her only protection is to stay defended. So what actually breaks through? Now, this is a part that nobody else talks about because the answer isn't a better approach. It isn't a different conversation or giving her more space or even giving her less space. The answer is identity, not strategy, not tactics, identity. Here's the concept that I walk every man through inside the Heroic Husband Method. The old you versus the new you. We actually literally have a 1.0, 2.0 letter, okay? So the old you responds to her distance with anxiety, does more around because he needs a reaction, and the old you's emotional state rides hers. When she's cold, he panics. When she pulls away, he chases. When she tests him, he crumbles or shuts down entirely. The new you is different at a level that has nothing to do with that behavior. New you can sit in her silence without needing to feel it. New you shows up the same way, whether she's warm or withdrawn. Not because she stopped caring, but because his stability is no longer dependent on her mood. His word is backed by action, not performed for approval. He's not doing the dishes hoping she'll notice, which, by the way, if you're doing more around the house and you think that that's what I need to do, you are so sorely mistaken. Especially because she can hire someone. She can get your kids to do that. She can get someone else to do all of that remedial stuff. Okay. You need to fill the deeper needs. That new you is doing them because that is who he is now. And that difference, that shift in the energy underneath the action is exactly what her nervous system has been waiting to feel. Because remember what I said, the feminine mirrors and multiplies. When you become genuinely grounded, when you're not performing stability but carrying it, what does she have to mirror back? Not panic, not need, presence. And for a woman who tripped her own circuit to protect herself from more disappointment, genuine grounded presence is the only thing that actually touches the breaker. Not to reset it instantly, but to create the environment where a reset becomes possible. This is what the emotional healing process is built on. The first stage of the emotional layering protocol is healing, then shifting, then it's bonding. And the healing stage doesn't start with her, it starts with you. It starts with rebuilding the foundation inside yourself so that what she mirrors back is finally worth mirroring. Not because you deserve credit for it, but because that's how the dynamic actually works. Here's what this looks like for Marcus. It wasn't a conversation that changed things. It wasn't a grand gesture either. It was a Tuesday, just a regular weeknight. He was in the kitchen, his wife walked in. And instead of watching for her reaction, instead of checking to see if she smiled, if she warmed up, he just kept doing what he was doing. Same energy, same calm, same presence. Not because he'd stopped caring, but because he'd stopped needing her to confirm for him that he was enough. And she stopped. She stood there for a moment. And he said she looked at him differently. Not in the hope yet way, not with warmth exactly, but with something like attention. Like she was recalibrating. Like she was registering something she hadn't felt in a long time. He told me she looked at me like she was trying to figure out who I was. That is a pattern interrupt. That is what happens when you stop being the man she already knows how to predict. She can predict the old you. She knows exactly what he does in the silence. She knows what he needs from her. She knows the cycle. But a man she can't predict, a man who shows up grounded regardless of what she gives back, that's a man she has to pay attention to. And attention is the beginning. Attention is a circuit, starting to test the current again. Not full open, but no longer fully closed. Now, I want to be clear. That didn't happen for Marcus in a week. It won't happen for you in a week either. What changed his timeline was he stopped guessing. He stopped reading articles at midnight trying to reverse engineer her behavior. He started following a system. The emotional layering protocol has 3 stages: healing, shifting, and bonding. Each stage has a purpose. Each one builds on the last. Trying to just jump to bonding when you haven't done any of the healing work is trying to move into a house with no foundation poured. The order matters. The process matters. And having someone who can see you clearly, who can name your blind spots before they cost you more time, that matters most of all. Before we close, I want to say one more thing. What you're going through right now, the silence, the distance, the I don't care, it's not just about your marriage. Your kids are watching. They're not watching the outcome, they're watching the process. They're watching to see if their father can face the hardest thing in his life and still lead, still stand, still stay. Not because the result is guaranteed, but because that's the kind of man he is. The world doesn't need more men who are incredible at everything outside the home and absent inside of it. It needs men who take whatever they've built, the discipline, the drive, the standard of excellence, and bring that same commitment to the people who need it most, your family. When you do this, when you go through the healing, the shifting, and the bonding, you're not just changing your marriage, you're changing what your children see. You're changing the model that they inherit, what they'll expect from love when they've grown, what they'll believe a man is capable of. That's real legacy. And it starts right now with the decision you make today. If you're standing in the silence right now, if she stopped fighting, stopped caring, stopped trying, and you don't know if there's a way back, I need you to take one action today. Book a free consultation call with my team. The link is in the description. It is a real conversation, not generic advice, not a pitch. We will look at your specific situation, where the bleeding points actually are, what stages you're in, and what the real next move looks like. If you want to start building the foundation right now, grab the heroic husband method. It's the map. Everything else is the journey. Both links are right there in the description. Do this today, not next week, not when things get worse, not when she makes a final decision, today. Because the men who move now are the ones who still make something work. And the window doesn't stay open forever. I'm Noah Allen, and I'll see you in the next one.